The discussion we have on the show today is quite an exciting one, I think, because we've been talking in the last couple of weeks. One discussion we had was, should we all fall in behind Keir Starmer? Should the left fall in behind Keir Starmer? And it was pretty clear that most people don't think the left should fall in behind Keir Starmer, even if he does look a bit like me. The second discussion we had last week was, is it possible to form a mass membership left-wing party? Can we do that? Well, someone pointed out to me that Enough is Enough, the campaign that started in August, I think, this year, has already got 700,000 members. Now, if they have 700,000 members, is that the basis possibly for a political party that could challenge the Labour Party? So that's what we're discussing on this debate, this discussion here. I've contacted a number of people from Enough is Enough. I won't go into all their names just because I don't want to get myself hate mail, but I have contacted a lot of the people leading Enough is Enough, and I'm afraid to say none of them have responded to my request to come and speak on this discussion about what the next step is for Enough is Enough. But I do have some graphs of our survey that we've done this week on this particular issue. And if you look at this, you can see that of subscribers to this show, 73% have already signed up for Enough is Enough. So it's popular with people who are watching. And the next graph shows, do you think Enough is Enough knows what its mission is? Most people think, 72%, similar amount, think that they know that Enough is Enough knows what its mission is. We can talk about that in a bit. Do you think Enough is Enough should focus on getting the Tories out? Yes, 74%. No, 26%. But then it comes to these questions of, if Enough is Enough were to endorse Labour in the next general election, would you support the campaign? Only 28% of people would support that. Lots of people are not certain they wouldn't, but most people would not support Labour, would not support Enough is Enough endorsing Labour. And finally, this is a question that's only been answered by Enough is Enough subscribers. Do you want Enough is Enough to become a new political party of the left? A clear majority think that Enough is Enough could and should, or could become should become a new political party of the left. I'm going to bring in Ben Timberley to speak about this to start with. Ben Timberley from Behind Labour. Ben, it looks like 70% are in favour of Enough is Enough becoming a new political party. What's holding that back, do you think?
It's interesting. I think the questions that you put to people were really well phrased, and they showed a clear divide in terms of what people understand about this movement and what they sort of project onto it themselves. And I think what we're seeing is a very clear drive from leftists that they want a new political party, that they want to join something that can have an impact at the ballot box. And this is the problem. EIE are constitutionally made up of organisations that are absolutely wedded to the Labour Party. They have no interest at all in moving away from the Labour Party. So unfortunately, I think, those who would love to see a new leftist party emerge, I'm one of them. I'm not a subscriber to EIE for various reasons, but for those who have subscribed to the movement and who do want it to become a new leftist party, I completely understand why, but you're not going to get what you want. Let's break this down for a second. So CWU are still essentially a Labourist union. You've got the Tribune magazine, which makes most of its money from floating around the Labour Party and that side of the political movement. You've got the UCU now, which essentially are still wedded to the Labour Party as an institution. And you've got Labour MPs and various other sort of big beasts, which is a phrase that I really, really hate, who are, again, wedded to the Labour Party as an institution for their political careers, for their political income, and for their political relevance. And this basically means that as a movement, it's great that the grassroots have risen up and said, we want something, we want this thing, and we're happy to put our names to it. That's fantastic. But unfortunately, EIE, I don't think it's going to happen with that, because in terms of what it's made of, that's just not what they're there for. And I think what's been sold versus what is actually being sought are completely different things.
The idea is that in that survey, 72%, I think it was, said that that enough is enough is clear about its intentions, what its aims are. That doesn't seem to be what I get from the fact they won't come on and speak, for example, on this discussion. Why would they not want to talk about what the next steps are for Enough is Enough, unless they're something they don't want to say?
Yeah, I think that's a common problem with many of these organisations. So I've tried to get EIE and various constituent parts of EIE to comment on various different things and to actually sort of show some collaborative spirit with the rest of the left. I've hit them through completely different channels, exactly the same stonewalling that you have. And for those who don't know, I've been quietly speaking to various other people on the left about various other things to try and build a consensus, to get everybody working together, to collaborate. And again, they've all been experiencing the same thing from EIE. It's very much a walled off encampment that has got a mailing list, allegedly, of 700,000 names, but they don't appear to be doing much with it at all. And all I can say is, I think there's going to be a lot of frustrated and disappointed leftists out there when they realise that this is essentially a great, lovely, balloon to get behind, a great principle, but it's not actually going to go anywhere. And I think this is where we have to get real with ourselves. As the left, we have to stop putting people on pedestals. We have to stop, looking at brands as the big next savior to come and rescue the left. That's not how this works. I think, John at the beginning of the show, said it best. We have to do this ourselves. Us here right now in this room. We cannot rely on unions. We cannot rely on big beasts. We cannot rely on magazines and big names to do this for us. We have to get off our butts and do this ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering. We've got some people who've answered the survey, and also people who responded to a Facebook post I put out. Ruth Knight, how are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. Now, you've been on my Facebook post. You've been writing for quite a while. We need a new left party. And listening to this, what we've had on the show, we've just had such everything about Labour has just been pretty much negative. Nothing positive on it. How hopeful are you that Enough is Enough could become the basis of a party?
I don't think enough is enough, to be honest. That's the thing. I pretty much agree with what Ben said. What we need is a party on the left to unite the left under one political banner, under a simple messaging system that will bring everybody together, whether it's BLM, XR, all the left parties. We cannot have all these disparate parties because they can be so easily brushed away and ignored by the mainstream media and the establishment. So also, again, what annoys me about the left is we're always going on these protest marches, we're always going on rallies, and we're always talking, and we're talking inside an echo chamber, and we're basically talking to the converted. What we don't do is organise politically to have a party that will represent part of society that is not represented at the moment. So you need to have, if you're going to have a chance in the game, we have to have a political party that will field candidates, local grassroots candidates from their communities, and we can put them in place all around the country and fight. It's been shown that with Enough is Enough have got, 700,000 people signed up to it. You've got when Jeremy Corbyn became leader of the Labour Party, look at the people that got behind him and flocked to his vision and what he wanted. The people are still there. They just have nowhere to go. And one of the things people say to me, oh, you know what, a new party is going to split the vote and this and that. The vote's already split. We have already, most of us on the left, taken our support away from the Labour Party. I will no longer be manipulated into voting for the lesser of two evils anymore. My vote has to count for me, and I have to vote with my heart as well as my head. One of the points I wanted to make, actually, Crispin, if it's okay, is that a new party, actually, it's quite easy to set up because all around the country, we have the infrastructure in place. We have, you know, whole CLPs that are resigned from the Labour Party, but still have the structure in place, still have the contacts, still have the people. We have all the movements that were set up during Jeremy Corbyn's leadership. We have manifestos, we have a Green New Deal, we have a fiscal vision that can easily be put in place to form a new party. We have people on the ground. I mean, look at the community organising that Starmer got rid of. I'm sure those people could be re-engaged and would come out again, and that would, you know, get out onto the streets. I, you know, went to so many rallies and whatever when Jeremy was Lotto, and one in particular stands out where we went to rally for Ali Milani, who was up against Boris Johnson in the 2019 election, and the amount of people that came out to walk the streets to support, you know, all those people are still there. And then you've got to think about as well the 4 million or so that Blair disenfranchised from politics. I was one of them, couldn't vote for the Labour Party. They all came back for Jeremy, and then they all went again, and they won't come out again. So it's tapping into that, and it's using the infrastructure we've got, and it's getting rid of people who are still wedded to the Labour Party. And if I may say so, I'm a bit disappointed in Jeremy, because Jeremy gave us a vision. He gave us something we could get behind, and that is still there. And it's so apparent that no left-leaning person is going to get a foothold in the Labour Party now. Even Jeremy himself is very unlikely he'll be able to stand as a candidate in the next election. So why not start a new party? Give it a chance. At the very least, even if we don't get sitting MPs come across, oh, and I forgot to mention as well, there are loads of councillors around the country that have left the Labour Party who have been elected and who will come on board. So the other thing I just want to say is everything is there to start that new party. It needs a big hitter like Jeremy to bring everybody together. That party would be hundreds of thousands strong overnight. The media cannot ignore a party that is that strong, and it would be funded with grassroots money, no big donors, none of this sort of stuff, people from the community. It's all there. It just needs to be brought together. And I know, you know, maybe I bang on a bit about Jeremy, but he is one of the people that can really bring this thing together. He does not have to lead it, but he does have to be integral in bringing the left together. If the left is splintered, as it is at the moment, with lots of different parties, the Palalites, I've got so much respect for all of them, the Breakthrough Party, whatever. But also consider this. You have an electorate that's politically illiterate, really. They can be so easily fooled into voting against their own interests. They can so easily be manipulated. We need to have a strong party with a strong comms, with a left media behind it that will put this to the people and bring them to our side. And we can only do that with a mixture of community organising and a political party. Because you can't have one without the other, in my opinion.
Right. Well, thank you for coming on. Good to see you.
Well, thank you.
And now I'm going to I'm going to move to Tony, he's put his hand up very early. He's very keen to speak. Tony Greenstein, he's back from his holiday. How you doing, Tony?
I'm doing fine. I'm sorry that I had to come back because Catalonia is such a nice place, but there you go. On a new party, just let me say this. No one should underestimate the difficulties of establishing such a party. I mean, we're all here today, but we have disagreements. We will have disagreements about things, whether you can reform capitalism or whether you have to overthrow it. What is your attitude to the state? And many, many other questions. We saw those differences come out in the campaign against Corbyn when some people were fooled by this kind of identity politics about Jews. I mean, it's plain to me that if you're going to establish a new party, and I do believe we need a new workers' party, believe you me, we have to win over a section of the trade union movement and the trade unions to such a party, and to convince people that New Labour, that Starmer's Labour is now a neoliberal party, which is no different in principle from the Conservatives. And that is a difficult task. We shouldn't underestimate it. I think it can be done, but we have to understand the difficulties we face, because the left is littered with failed parties. And some of them, like the Independent Labour Party or the Scottish Socialist Party, did actually get MPs into Parliament. Even the Communist Party at one time got MPs and councillors into Parliament. So I don't want to pour cold water on it, but just to say, we must be realistic. I mean, there are people like me who are Marxists and revolutionaries, and others who are left social democrats in the Tony Benn heritage, or Jeremy Corbyn for that matter. So we have to come together. I mean, if you look at Die Linke in Germany, which of course has a PR system, it too has had its great difficulty. It only just got back into the German Bundestag at the last elections, precisely because such a party has many, many differences of outlook, if you like. But I think one of the clearest things we have to do is to say that we reject the whole idea of British militarism, NATO, and the alliance with the United States. That was the key factor in defeating Jeremy Corbyn. Corbyn was held not to be a loyal, if you like, servant of the British state. And that is why the capitalist class went for him with all these bogus accusations of anti-Semitism. We see that today, of course. I mean, Starmer came to become leader, promising to root out anti-Semitism. But we know what that meant. You expel Jewish anti-Zionists. And of course, you get rid of any black or Muslim person who causes you any difficulty. So that's all I really wanted to say. Thanks.
Right, okay. All right, thank you, Tony. I'm going to bring in Rachel Tomlinson from Hull. How you doing, Rachel?
I'm all right, thank you. Are you? I can't get used to you without your hat and your jacket.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's really annoying. I feel like a fraud about that hat on. What's your view on enough is enough? I mean, it's moved a little bit away from that where we were actually discussing there. But do you think enough is enough can be a basis for a party?
No, it's not as it stands at the moment. Because when they put all the following the mini budget, they decided to put another 50 events on for the 1st of October, and one of which was in Hull. And who did they get in contact with? The Labour councillors. So the Labour councillors ran the Enough is Enough event, along with the Trade Council. The Trade Council were involved as well. But it was the Labour councillors that were like heading it up, if you like. So if that's happened on the other 50 that they've put together, then they are tied very, very tightly in with the Labour Party already. And none of us can get through. I mean, I've managed to get through because I know our local councillor, or one of the local councillors that's involved with it, and I've managed to get through to her and say, because one of the things with me, which you obviously know is going to come out, is the disability side of it and the accessibility side of it. People are still not shouting for us. People are still just shouting for working people. Enough is enough for as bad as everybody else for that. Anisha has that, the councillor has actually did try to turn that round into working class instead of working people, and was immediately had her words changed in the local press back to working people. But yeah, I am concerned that I really don't think it's what people think it is.
That's the thing. I mean, people seem to think it's like enough is enough of the political establishment. I mean, that seems to be what the slogan is. Enough is enough of the Westminster establishment. Yet, if you're saying Labour in Hull was kind of organising it, and people in the chat seem to be saying other cities as well. I mean, it's kind of like it's a bit misleading in a way.
Yeah.
And you know, if 70% of those in that poll, I'm not saying that my poll is perfectly weighted. People give me all that. It's a snapshot, but I don't think anyone else has done a poll of 400 plus Enough is Enough members to find out what they think. And if 70% would like a new party, they're not going to go along with backing Starmer, are they? I mean, imagine a general election. If Enough is Enough say vote for Labour under Starmer, it's just going to be mad, isn't it?
Well, when you think that, like Mick Lynch obviously is a big part of it, and they aren't affiliated to Labour, but he is continually in every discussion trying to get Starmer behind him, trying to get the Labour Party behind him as far as strikes go and supporting strikes. So yeah, I mean, I think we all know, don't we? There's going to be a general election fairly soon, really. And it'd be interesting to see which side they sit on, because I actually think that that's exactly what they'll do.
Well,
I can't see what else they can do, because a lot of them are affiliated to Labour, not all of them. But if they're actually calling out, they literally made the phone call to the Anisha on the Monday and said, "Can you set up a rally on Saturday?" Which thankfully Hull are very good at doing things like that. I don't know that it was that well organised across some of the others, because there was quite a lot of complaints came in on others that happened as far as organisation goes. But yeah, I think it's like everything else like this. Everybody's looking at this top line, aren't they? They've put five
big bees.
Thank you. I hate them sometimes. I used to be able to speak properly. And what do they mean? What do any of them mean? Where's the weight behind them? What's supporting what they've got in those five? Again, so I think it does. I think there's an awful lot left to be desired. But as Ruth said, a lot of the voting public are ignorant because they're not interested particularly until it comes to the time that they've got to vote. And then with social media and all the rest of it, we know with Cambridge Analytica, just going into that briefly, we know what they can do by putting that sort of information out there, and people just fall for it.
Yeah.
And that worries them.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Rachel. I'm going to move on to. Oh, sorry, I've muted you. But I'm going to move on to Jane. Jane Lee. Jane, how are you doing?
Hello. Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
You're on.
Hi. I've just come back from Marseille again, where I was. There was a big demonstration for Océane, and also, of course, the pétroliers are on strike. So people can't get any petrol because the people who work in the French industry have just gone on strike. So all over the country, and I just to let you know what's going on over there, but also, of course, what's going on over there is the working out of the of La France Insoumise's leadership of the NUP party, and all the stages of creating a left bloc which strings together the various small groups that have particular interests. And of course, in France, many of those are regional interests. You can imagine in a largely agrarian country, some of them are related to just one crop. But it is something that is quite interesting in terms, I think, of our debate here. I think that that in order to create a people, if you want to have a people's party, the initial thing is always an antagonist that you can identify. And we are beginning to identify the antagonist as the Labour Party as well as the Tory Party quite clearly. That so that and that's what we have to really focus on when we try to get to the people. I think it is really important that we decide to leave the Labour Party, not just because the Labour Party are corrupt and all the rest of it or is treated as badly, but because creating the people itself so that the people can have a voice relies upon our clearly showing the antagonist. And that clear antagonist, of course, is capitalist. And I think that the people we're trying to speak to have been brought up in a culture which extends from the Cold War, which gave the idea that capitalism was always good, that capitalism was always the freedom, whereas in fact it's quite the opposite. And I'm not arguing for Soviet systems, of course, but what I'm saying is that we have to replace the idea that that the resistance to capitalism is antagonistic. We have to replace that with the idea that capitalism itself is the antagonist to the people. Right. And so I think it is really important that although that we draw back from Enough is Enough or any other organization that is wedded to the Labour Party, or in probably more realistically to inform people in Enough is Enough that it's not, as Ben has been doing, it's not what they think anyway. And I do think that a new party would do extremely well under Ben Premsika and many of the people who come under. And I hope Ben, you're willing to take up the cudgels. Anyway, thank you.
I'll do what I can.
Thank you. That's true. It's interesting because the Socialist Party in France has disappeared as a result of that coalition. So it's and the Socialist Party is a similar small beast now.
It's a tiny. There is a little bit of the Socialist Party which is still in NUPES. There is a PS membership of the NUPES. So the extreme left of what was the PS, which was the Socialist Party, is part of Mélenchon's group in the left.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah. So we could have the campaign socialist group in a new party.
So you could still have Richard Bergen, and a few of his mates, in the new party, yes.
Jane, if I may, how have Insoumise and NUP actually sort of dealt with the problem of the divergent policy agendas of all of these different groups? Have you seen how they've dealt with that, how they've overcome their disagreements?
I think there is much more theoretical clarity behind being French, of course. I mean, they much more theoretical clarity behind the discussions they have with each other. And the theory that they're working on is theory which, in fact, has always interested John McDonnell. And that's Ernesto Laclau, Chantal Mouffe, the new theories from the 70s and 80s, really, a new Gramsciism. So they have a kind of, in a sense, a model for argument, and so they are managing in a way that we haven't. And people keep saying the adults have come back into the room, but the adults need a bibliography, as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you, Jane. That was brilliant.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Now I'm going to move on to Eric's had his hand up for a while. Eric?
Okay, now the first thing I want to say is EIE should be left to get on with doing what they're already doing, which is useful. Let them do it. Let's not try and turn that into the basis of a new party. But beyond that, we should not try to repeat the same mistakes we've made over and over again by using an existing party to create a larger new party. It's never worked. We've tried it so many times, it has failed every time.
Can you give us an example? Can you give us examples of that?
Well, TUSC hasn't broken through. It had everything going for it, but hasn't managed to break through because there are too many groups there fighting each other that pre-existed as caucuses, and it doesn't work. You have to have this new thing that doesn't have caucuses at its heart that will fight for control. So it has to be something that comes from outside of what currently exists. It has to be a coalition of groups creating something that is new and separate. Otherwise, it won't happen. And all of us who are involved in anything on the left or Greens or anything have to understand what we actually need from a new party, not just what we want, because we don't agree on what we want. We have to decide what we absolutely fundamentally must have and insist only on that. Then get behind it and settle our differences through democratic debate to decide what the things we want will happen.
Great. Well, that's very, very interesting. Thank you, Eric. Great points. Now, Julie Hope's back. Good to see you, Julie.
Good to see you as well, without the hats as well.
I'm sorry about that. Sorry about
That's why you still look very handsome. No, so I didn't get a chance to explore my ideas last week. I think Enough is Enough has shown that there are huge numbers of people in this country who are ready for a new political party. I don't think Enough is Enough should be a political party. I don't think any organisation or movement should start a political party. I think we have to start right from the beginning. We should all be the seedlings of a new party which develops its political ideas and decides upon who's going to lead it and all the rest of it way after we have decided on, like Bruce said and Eric said, we got to sort out what our ideals are first, what we need, what we are aiming for. You know, it's no good forming an umbrella. We need to be starting from the very basics and moving up. And that's the only way we're going to get collaboration between all of the groups on the left, you know, and then maybe, and hopefully, who knows how long it takes, hopefully not too long, because if a general election comes and we're stuck with whoever, Labour or Tories, then, you know, it's going to be a harder struggle. But we need to get a seedlings movement growing so that in time we can actually form a political party where we have a coalition of all the groups, you know, people from Enough is Enough, people from People's Assembly, who are probably the same people, but still, and people from the Socialist Party, Tusk, you know, LIN, all of the left, and hopefully some Labour Party members as well, you know, will actually come over and join, but to actually share ideas, what we need, how we're going to get there, you know. We've got brilliant manifestos out there from the 2017 in particular, but 2019 as well, but develop those ideas. And then maybe to start with, we need, you know, football has always been a working person's, you know, let's hire a football stadium. Let's invite everyone we can to a football stadium, including the public. Get that football stadium full, get people from all the different movements, organisations, standing up, saying what they want to say, put a lot of entertainment on as well, get the young people in there to enjoy what's happening. And then, you know, maybe one person from each of the groups gets together and starts talking about ideas, talking about what they want, what we need, and then from the grassroots up, form a party, you know, where we can then decide on a new leadership, you know, get somebody like Jeremy maybe, hopefully, to join in, but not to be a leader, but to be a voice of reason, as he always is and always has been, in order to get us started. Yeah, but it has to come from the seedlings, through the, you know, through the roots, up, growing up and developing and being a united coalition of groups in order to move forward.
I'm excited, Julie. That's amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, yeah. And I think it hasn't, we can't be workers, you know, it can't be just the workers. It has to be for the many, you know. It's the people who are not in the top wage, no, not earners, the people who don't have to work for a living, you know, people like me who are retired. Yeah, people who can't work because they are either disabled or they're not in work, not in employment. Everyone needs to, you know, be invited so that it is not, there are no boundaries at all. It's just for anyone who wants to say, enough is enough. We've got to get out there. We've got to form a new movement. Enough is enough, but it's not enough for enough is enough to start it. We need to start it ourselves and get up there. Hire a football stadium, get it full of people, and let's go from there.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Julie. Thank you. Thank you, Julie. Now I'm going to move to Phil Pope in Bristol, who filled in the survey. And hi, Phil.
Hi, Crispin. Thanks for having me on. Cheers.
What would you like to say? I think we've had a lot of good points. One or two people saying there's no point using enough is enough because you just start again, really, with something. But the main thing is there's so many people who want to get a new party, aren't there? There is a massive demand, don't you think? Even if it isn't, whatever method it is, there is a massive demand for a new party.
Absolutely. I don't think you can deny the mood. And we should have started doing this 3 years ago. But the argument is shifting. It is shifting. I can tell from all the contributions today, more and more people have realised what's going on. You can see that from the Labour NEC elections. 2017, 90,000 people voted for the Momentum slate. This year it was down to 30,000, and that includes the votes for Naomi, who was then expelled. So, I mean, most of the left, most of the active left, has already left Labour, and those groups that remain in Labour claiming to be leading the left, they're not leading. Most of their troops have left the field. They're not leaders. They're just being humiliated in the Labour Party every day. So, I mean, the argument has definitely moved. And I think the argument we now will come across is that we can't start a new party until we get trade union support. And I'd like to talk briefly about why that is wrong. It's all to do with the foundational myth of the Labour Party. Now, the Labour Representation Committee was formed in 1900, and it did have the support of about half the national trade unions. But what people don't mention is that for 20 years before that, all the national trade unions had opposed the formation of a new party. And during that time, socialists all around the country had got local councillors elected. By the time the Labour Party was formed, there were 600 socialist councillors. That had been done against the opposition of the national trade unions, who collaborated with the Liberal Party to have Lib-Lab candidates who were explicitly not allowed to be socialists. It was only when the grassroots activists proved in action that it could be possible that the trade unions started to come on side. And it was then another 20 years that they spent establishing the Labour Party as a real political force. So we can't wait for the unions. Enough is enough. I'm not going to do it. Now, of course, there's differences to 120 years ago to today, but I think the differences actually make my case even stronger, because in 1900, The Liberal Party was very weak after 20 years of crisis about Irish independence and other issues. Starmer's going to be Prime Minister in a couple of years. Everyone knows it. He's going to have a huge majority. People like the CWU and the RMT, their strategy is try and negotiate with Starmer. They know that's their reality. It shouldn't be our reality. We've got to start this work. And we absolutely can't look to the people who are still in the Labour Party to lead it. They're not going to be in leadership. It's the people in this meeting and meetings like this who are the best of the Labour Party. And I'm really encouraged by all the speakers who've gone before me, because I think there's a change in mood. We've got to crack on. So what we've got to do is set up a national membership that is an actual membership and not just a mailing list like Enough is Enough. Start doing some fundraising, like crowdfunding, to do this professionally. Like, we can't rely on people doing this in the evenings in their spare time. So it's really, really hard when you talk about tens of thousands of pounds to pay a national executive to do a full-time job on this, because it's
what you just said there, Phil, is absolutely relevant, because I had a conversation the other day with some people who shall not be named, and one of the responses I had was, we don't need charts and diagrams and sort of, professionalism. We need working class people to go out on the streets. And, the frustration I have with much of the left at times is that this is almost jingoist sort of idea that, protest and, being angry and outraged is enough. And what you've just identified is that there needs to be an element of professionalism, of organisation, of funding on the left. You're absolutely right, sir.
Our enemy does that. We've got to we've got
to up our game. We've got to up our game. Yeah. Now look, I'm going to move on because I haven't got much. I can't go on for a long time on here. But sorry, Trish O'Hara has put her hand up. I'm deliberately picking people who don't often speak on the show or haven't. Trish, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, thanks.
Sorry, I got told off last week for not including new people, all the same people. So we're not having that this week. We're having new people. Go for it, Trish.
I have spoken before a while ago, and I do.
Oh, okay, I'm going to mute you now. It's all right, I'm muting it. It's all right. No, carry on.
Yeah, I have spoken a while ago, but you're right. It's nice to be on. A great show, thank you. I think I wanted to say a couple of things about Enough is Enough. I think in many ways, and I really believe this, that some people move to socialism because it's self-defense. And I think enough is enough is something people understand the term. It means something different to different people. So disabled people will see it as an attack on their benefits. Enough is enough. Obviously, those groups that are facing racism will say enough is enough. And those groups who are facing the hostility generally, the care sector who can't carry on in their work because it's collapsing, the nurses, the teachers, everyone on strike, the trade unionists, the RMT, people have enough is enough as a kind of part of their natural parlance. So it's never going to be a new party. Enough is enough. Of course it isn't. But the truth is people can join into it and say that for them, enough is enough for me. What does it mean to me, the cost of living crisis or whatever? And that's a really good sort of it's a very big general idea, and we say it in our families anyway. Enough is enough. We say it to our kids when they're naughty. So it's not an unusual term. It's good to coalesce around something. I recognise that there's lots of people wedded to the Labour Party. The truth is, when we think about a model for change and a model for a party in Newham, I'm in Newham, we did stand 6 people. I mean, some of us are social democrats, some of us revolutionary Marxists, but the truth is we stood 6 people in the more recent, a year or so ago, council elections, and we did really well. And we actually also stood a mayor to contest our toxic mayor who's at lines to Starmer. You all know from the Labour files the state of Newham, and it's been horrific. So the truth is we stood 6, and what we've done since, and the truth is since 2019, our CLP chair, who I'm assuming is on here, the lovely Carell, she's still our chair. We're Newham Socialists now. We're actually Newham Socialist Labour, but the term Labour sort of tends to upset some people. So we're Newham Socialists, and she's still our chair. we still meet we meet every 2 weeks. We have a regular attendance of our meeting of over 10, sometimes 20, and we're involved in food banks, particularly one, Mahmoud Mirza, who you might have seen in the Labour files. I mean, he's involved in feeding or supporting to feed 400 people every week in Newham. We're involved in this, and I learned this from Carell, our CLP, really. We're using the same mode of transport towards a change and a party. If everyone did this across the country, just carried on calling themselves a shadow or a ghost party, just keep being there, be the thorn in the side, and then start standing people who are going to truly be there to fight, not to careerists. That's the trouble, is avoiding, as Dr. Gill said earlier on the chat, there are people attracted to politics because they believe in it passionately, and then there's the tossers who believe in careers. And so we don't always know who they are. We voted for them before, haven't we? We've bloody campaigned for these arseholes, excuse my language. But the truth is, you know, we should test people now, the grassroots, and the way to do that is that Fred Hampton method of the Panthers, is that you get involved in the community, and that may or may not include trade unionism, you know, the Trades Council, whomever, but have a CLP and call yourself a party, whether you are one or not. And then as soon as there is one, we all just jump the name. We're Newham, whatever it is, Newham the Groove, Barking the Groove, Peckham the Groove, wherever, Wigan the Groove, the North East the Groove, whatever it's called. If it's called the Groove, we change our names to it immediately, and we're already set up. We're already in the community. We've got 4 years or 3 years. Of course, Starmer's getting in. He's not going to change anything. He's got no answers. He won't do a thing, and that's the vacuum. That's the bit we can fill.
And that's why we need to move now. Right, that's why we need to go now.
We need to have CLPs, a shadow CLP or ghost CLPs now in every borough, in every county, in every part of the country that communicate on here and elsewhere. And I think here's a really good place for people to communicate. And then as soon as Starmer's been in a couple of years and carries on just basically doing whatever the Tories are doing, he's not going to make any difference. He's no different from Jeremy Hunt, excuse the typo, but you know, the truth is he without a doubt will carry on. And at the point that he is failing, that is when our voices will make a difference. We can change this, and we will. Thank you.
Well said, Trish.
Thank you. Now look, Ben, there's a lot of I love the way this has turned out, this discussion, because I was thinking everyone was saying, no, let's go with enough is enough, and everyone's saying, no, forget that, let's start something else, and we're going to get football stadiums full, we're going to set up in community. The main thing is everyone's up for it.
Yeah, they're up for the fight. I think the idea about the football stadium is an amazing one. You know, I know we've had conversations about, you know, is there something we could do to pull everybody together and have that conversation? And I think a football stadium's not a bad shout, to be frank. I think the idea about a decentralized sort of a cellular structure in terms of having individual groups that don't get told what to do, they just get on and do it. They get to decide what goes on for themselves in their local area, and how they can make that as part of a national effort of other groups doing exactly the same thing. I think that's absolutely gold. And I think there's so much desire for this. I think, you know, now's the time. We've just got to get together. We've got to do the work. And I think most of all, we've got to commit to it. I think, you know, that there's no point in trying to wait for a big name to come and rescue us. I don't think there's any point to, you know, waiting for, you know, some pre-existing organisation to suddenly have a change of heart and decide that it wants to, you know, be our home. I don't think any of that's going to happen. I think everything that everybody has come forward and said today is absolutely on the money. And I, for one, I'm going to do something about it.